Jayapal for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Again, thanks for coming here. Earlier this year, I know HHS finalized regulations governing the placement care and services provided to unaccompanied children in HHS custody, and my understanding is that these regulations improve the department's placement and release processes for unaccompanied children, strengthen children's privacy and legal rights, and set minimum standards for emergency and influx facilities designed to hold children when there is insufficient space. The regulations also codify the current requirement that an at-home study be conducted before releasing a child to a non-relative sponsor who is attempting to sponsor multiple children, who previously sponsored a child, or if the non-relative child they want to sponsor is under 12 years old. A lot of this seems responsive to the concerns that were raised last year following a report from the New York Times that children were working unlawfully in factories across the Midwest and that some sponsors had taken in multiple unaccompanied children. Can you just confirm to Mr. Biggs's question, you do a full background check on everybody, is that correct?
Yes, we do.
So you run them through the databases, if they have criminal histories, that's gonna come up in the full background check, is that right?
That's correct.
So can you discuss the importance of the regulations that you passed to protecting unaccompanied children in HHS's custody? And then second, can you discuss why the home study requirement for children under 12 who are not placed with a close relative is so important to protecting kids from trafficking?
Congresswoman, the rule that you've mentioned that we recently actually got through and have now put in place was important because it put a clear signal of what we do and how we do it so that all of our contractors who care for these kids understand the rules. And so they must make sure that if they're going to vet a particular sponsor, they go through the full level of extensive checking on background, whether it's a sexual offender registry, whether it's making sure that if they need it, they use fingerprints. So we want to make sure there's no ambiguity about what their responsibility is to make sure that they are putting first and foremost the safety of that child first before they place that child with a sponsor. And that foundational rule has now put in place what we've learned over time, because if you'll recall, we inherited a dismantled, a broken system for child care of these unaccompanied kids. And we had to essentially rebuild the process. Along the way, we've learned a great deal about how to do it better, how to strengthen it, and this foundational rule really incorporates that.
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, I just want to be clear. It's not like you're just placing kids with people who have criminal records, people who are known gang members. You're going through a full, extensive background check before you place any child. I understand that many of the factories unlawfully employing children used E-Verify. And it's clear that many of our immigration laws and tools, including E-Verify, are not sufficient to meet the demands of our modern world. The immigration system hasn't been meaningfully reformed in over 30 years. You and I have both worked on that issue for a long time. What reforms to the immigration system would you recommend to help HHS protect unaccompanied children entrusted to your care?
Well, Congresswoman, one of the things that we've worked hard to do is to expand our post-release services, because as you mentioned in your opening remarks, once we have placed the child in the care of a sponsor, a vetted sponsor, we no longer have responsibility, we no longer have jurisdiction over those children. We should be able to have that post-release service made something we can do all the time. Right now, we offer it to the kids. They're not required to take it, but we're also depending on the resources to actually offer those services. If we don't have the resources, we can't offer those post-release services. That would help, certainly, if there's an employer who is exploiting a child and employing them against the law. I would hope that this committee would do the same type of hearings, same type of investigation of the employers. We follow the law at HHS, employers should too.
Yeah, really important point. I don't think we've dragged any employers up to the table to talk to them about why they are abusing these labor laws and employing child labor. I want to discuss appointed counsel because I think this is really important. It's outrageous to me that kids, including toddlers, are forced to literally show up in court facing a prosecutor and they've got no representation. I think a lot of Americans just may not know that. As you know, HHS is required to arrange for legal representation for unaccompanied children to the greatest extent practicable. And I know that you share my empathy with these kids, but so much of this is, again, contingent upon funding that is given to the agency. So given how complicated the immigration system is, just can you briefly discuss, my time is out, but the importance of providing counsel to unaccompanied children?
Giving kids the right information is crucial, and Mr. Chairman, I recognize my time has expired, so I'll be brief and say, we do everything we can to make sure they understand what their obligations are. We don't actually hire them attorneys, but we try to give them some information, provide the advocacy, but again, it's all contingent on having the resources to go to that extent of services.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Mr.
Yield
Biggs
back.
for a unanimous consent request.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the rule that that the witness might have referred to is Title 45. I'd like to submit it for the record, where it makes public records checks and FBI national crime checks optional for the sponsors and adults living in the home.
Without objection?